Okay, welcome to our friends to another episode of Ask Ed. I've got Ed Smith here with me, and we're in his little man cave here, and it's a wonderful thing to be surrounded by some cool cars. Sometime we're going to probably introduce you a little bit better to some of these cars that you haven't seen yet, at least not very well. So in any case, thank you for coming to another episode. Thank you for sending in your questions. It's entertaining to see the comments and the questions. Sometimes we don't think of everything at one time to talk about. And it's great to have you give us your questions, what you're thinking about. And I know Ed enjoys this. So here we go. And Ed, good morning.
Good morning.
It's wonderful to be here again.
Yeah, today's Friday and it rained last night, so it's cool.
Feels so much better.
We can be in the garage here without being in the air-conditioned office and making up. So it's a lot better.
Nice to get out of the office.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cools off here in Arizona a little bit, under 100, so we can get some jobs done outside.
Yeah. Quickly do the jobs before it's too cold after being too...
Right. Got a few days.
Yeah, right.
Probably about a couple of days before it gets cold.
That's right.
So
very good.
What we got today?
Well, today, let's see. I think we have some more kind of carburetor and that kind of related questions.
Okay, we'll try that.
Yeah, well, this one I know you're going to know the answer because it's your opinion, so you're going to know your own opinion.
Oh, okay.
So someone asked, ask Ed, and I know one of these you've mentioned quite a bit. He says, ask Ed what are your top three favorite carburetors? And he wanted to guess ahead of time. His guess was Weber, Solex, and Edelbrock. But you're going to have to tell me what you think.
We don't work on foreign cars.
Okay.
So we don't see Solex and Weber very much before. I know I used to have, once in a while we work on a Volvo or something, and it had a pair of carburetors on it. Mm-hmm. I love that little, maybe a 61 Volvo. It looked like a 46 Ford two-door sedan.
Right.
It was a gorgeous car, and it had a pair of those, I think they were Solex carburetors on them. Okay. They were like a vacuum type carburetor. Mm-hmm. And other than that, we do much with Weber carburetors.
Yes.
And of course, Edelbrock carburetors, we're working on those, and that's the same as an AFB, Carter carburetor, but Edelbrock bought them and changed a few things so the gaskets don't fit. These Edelbrock gasket kit will not fit a Carter. Okay, they don't interchange exactly. They don't interchange. They move the screws around right. A little bit of gaskets and stuff, so I don't know. But it's the same, the old Carter carburetors. Fundamentals about it. Okay. Where they jet and get them to work right, yeah. Okay. So do you enjoy working on Edelbrock carburetors? I've worked on them forever. Okay. So and I still do. Once in a while we get one, even we buy a brand new one sometimes that don't work right. Yeah. Because they're just bulk, mass produced. Right. And and then we get customers come in almost daily and ask questions about the Edelbrock carburetor or his car that won't go through emissions or it stumbles or does something like this. But and Edelbrock carburetors are basically a trouble-free carburetor. Okay. If you don't let it set. Okay. If you let it sit for a while, that bad gasoline, when it sticks the needle. Right, because they're very tiny clearances, aren't they? Yeah, the little small needle in there that holds the accelerator pump. Mm-hmm. And I wish there was a way you could get in there to spray a little carburetor cleaner on that instead of taking the top off the carburetor. Yeah. But we also know that the Holley carburetor is much faster. If you want to race the car and actually tune it right and get it right down to fine tuning, you really need to have a Holley carburetor on it. All right, and the other day when I was visiting, you showed me a Holley race carb, and I think we're going to have to do a separate episode for you people. We're actually going to get some carburetors out and show you, instead of just talking about it, we're going to actually show some of those things. Yeah, show some metering in them and stuff like that. We can do that. Okay, we're going to hold you to that. I think people will enjoy that. Okay. Okay. Someone named Gordo Carbo. Okay, good. He says, a video on low vacuum engines and choosing the right PCV valve. And if you're reading a 383 small block Chevy at 7 to 8 inches at idle and a stock PCV or one off an LT1 big block, so he's asking, different questions. What are your thoughts on choosing the right PCV valve? I have some questions about that. With the correct engine, I don't want to complain about his engine or not, but should have more vacuum at idle than that.
Okay.
In the first place.
Okay.
Either if you have their engine correctly with the compression ratio on the camshaft and all the things and the carburation and things like this, goes back to carburation again too.
Yeah.
It says if it has that low vacuum, then it's not going to idle right. So now you've got the carburetor screwed up out of the vacuum, out of the idle circuit.
Right, right.
So we're back into that. You got the carburetor screwed way up to what idles supposedly be idling at 1,200 RPMs, and really because you're way out of the idle circuit, the car's only idling at 500 or 600 RPMs and low vacuum.
Okay.
So that's about the time drill some holes in the butterflies in the carburetor and get that carburetor back down into the idle circuit.
Right.
So again, a correct motor, even if it's got a big camshaft in it, you need a big camshaft and lots of compression. And no compression, a small camshaft. Okay. If you get those correct, the engine will run perfect.
Gotcha.
And idle perfect too.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's important.
He's getting into several things here that makes that engine run perfect.
Okay.
At idle.
Right. Yeah, and so you need to have all those things going the right way. Okay, so his follow-up is he experimented taking the stock hole larger, and he noticed later the idle was lean and lazy. He wondered if he screwed up. I guess when he says the stock hole larger, is that the hole you were talking about? That?
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know for sure.
I don't know what hole he drilled.
Okay, yeah, so we don't have quite enough. Gordo Carbo.
We need more information on that.
Yeah, Gordo Carbo, if you want to get more details to us on that question, that would help us.
Yeah, I don't know what hole he drilled.
Okay, very good. Okay, so the next one, someone by the name of McLaren CCA says, talking about a Holley, that being said, does a wide open throttle let the engine rev to 3,000 to 4,000 RPM and either slam the choke shut, or do you put your hand over the air horn for a second or two while at wide open throttle till the engine almost dies? Then you remove your hand or open the choke and clear the engine out. If that doesn't do the trick, so I guess he's trying to clear something out.
He's actually sucking this stuff with vacuum. He sucks all the debris, and you end up getting some debris in the gasoline.
Okay.
And dust in the air. I was talking the other day about those air bleeds on the top of the carburetor.
Yeah.
And right. I think that he maybe remarked that. The air bleeds on the top of the carburetor right there open. It's open to air with got dirt in it.
Yeah.
And they'll be plugged up.
Okay.
And they're so sensitive, the air bleeds in the carburetor, that the normal guy would go home and get a kind of carburetor cleaner and spray the top of his carburetor.
Yeah. Right.
Sprayed it off and start up and run a little bit, and runs so much better.
Yeah.
Just because he's just sprayed those little air valves open.
Okay.
He didn't clean the bottom of the carburetor. He didn't put spray in the bowls or didn't clean the jets or anything.
Yeah.
But now when you rev it up, that's a good thing to rev it up, put your hand over it. You don't have to go that hard RPMs.
Yeah.
But even up to 1,000.
Okay.
Or something around there, just above idle somewhere.
Yeah.
And actually run it wide open. And when you run the carburetor wide open, you put your hand on it. And actually, it will suck all the dirt off the bottom of your hand.
Right.
Yeah, your hand will be clean, spotless clean. And it also sucks all that little moisture and those little debris down through the engine and clean the carburetor.
Okay.
It runs much better that way.
So that is a good method then.
It's a good method, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might not choose those RPMs necessarily, but
not
the idea.
You don't need that many.
Okay, but the idea of opening it up and covering it.
And then you don't have to hold it till it quits running.
Okay.
Just hold it just for a few seconds and take your hand off and put the throttle back and let it go back down to idle and rev it a couple of minutes, clean it out, and it'll run fine.
Okay.
It runs a lot better.
So I guess the whole point of that is you're kind of shocking the system by doing
That's right.
right?
All you're doing is flushing the toilet.
Yeah.
To get all the stuff out of it.
Right.
Yeah, that's all you're doing.
Perfect. This person's name is Hot Rod Ray. He's talking about EGR versus PCV and sucking. So he's talking about sucking the crankcase blow-by into the intake. Is that good for an engine? It reduces smog, but cruds up the intake and the valves, like?
Somewhat, but it's just very little.
Okay.
If he's got that much blow-by, he needs to get it fixed.
Ah.
Yeah, he shouldn't have oil dripping out of the valve, out of those PVC valves. And so many times, we've fixed so many of those over the years, the guy buys a set of valve covers, and it does not have the baffle in there. Over the hole, there's a little tin baffle that's supposed to be in the valve cover. And then that one rocker arm will squirt oil right in that PVC.
Oh.
Right away. Right. And as you go down the road, it squirts oil right in that PVC, and of course it smokes and uses a lot of oil. Ah. So I don't know how many valve covers I've taken off of cars, and the customer come in, take it off, and he's asked, does not have that tin baffle.
Okay.
And we used to get it, I don't know what now, we used to get that tin baffle and a couple screws. But we may take, if it's an aluminum valve cover, we may take a piece of aluminum and take it away and have the guy spot welded on there.
Okay. So
that keeps that rocker arm from squirting oil right on that PVC.
Interesting.
I think that may be some of his problem.
Interesting.
But we've fixed hundreds of those valve covers over the years and fixed their people's problem from smoking and using oil.
Right. And if you're not paying attention, you're buying these fancy oil valve covers.
Yeah.
You don't realize
and
there's a
blame
little
the
piece
PVC
missing.
Valve.
Yeah.
It's not that at all.
Right. That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, here's someone that just kind of has a question, and I was kind of mentioning this to you earlier when we were looking at that Flathead. He said, I put my PCV in the same location, but I still use the original oil fill tube. I blocked off the fuel pump hole on the rear with a block-off plate. Should I switch it back, or am I good to go?
You're fine.
Doesn't matter?
It's just a preference what it looks like.
Yeah. Right.
If you want that tube sticking up over the carburetor, or you want it in the back.
Yeah, it's still going to function the same.
It's easy to make that plug he's got in the back there to cut a hole in it and put the original pipe back in it and make sure when you do that you end up getting a chrome cap that fits on there.
Okay.
Sometimes the chrome caps, the hole in the cap, the pipe that the cap is originally made for is different size than the one pipe that you might buy and weld in there, and then the cap won't fit.
So just make sure it's fitting right.
Yeah, just make sure.
Okay, and then however you like it.
Yeah, whatever you want, yeah.
Okay, this is a kind of flathead carb thing. This guy's name is Sal. We used to use 2 carb plate adapters to keep the gas cooler and also get extra horsepower because if you can keep he's talking about heat on the carburetors, it causes problems and the gas warms up close to the manifold. What comes to mind about running engines just as a general thing with gas lines too close to the engine?
A couple of things there. Now, every time we build a motor on a flathead, it has those 2 5/8 holes in the block that heats up the intake manifold. Yeah. So we plug those. Yeah. We just drive freeze plugs in them, and it comes right above the exhaust, right in the middle of the block, right on the intake gasket. Okay. So we drive them and plug them up so there's no heat getting to the carburetor. Okay. And so even though it's good to keep those carburetors cool, because the float level is a certain amount, and we know that liquid maybe expands 10% or something for every 100 degrees. Yeah. So that's why sometimes you park your car and the float level is too high, and the heat of the engine, you let it set a little while, and the fuel expands over the top of the carburetor and trips down the carburetor, and the carburetor is flooded, the engine is flooded. And if that happens, you can see, if you have the air cleaner on, you see a little smoke coming out of the carburetor. Because that's when it's bubbling over, heated, and that fuel's expanded and overran the needle and seat. Okay. If you got the float level basically too high too, same way. Okay. But then and we like the insulations under the carburetors. Okay. Insulate them with a couple gaskets or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, but find a way to keep them away a little bit.
Them. And we've had some of our engines, we've actually made stacks for them with the 2-barrel carburetors, some of our V8 motors, and made them 2 inches tall. It was like exhaust pipe and tubing, and made their own flanges and raised that carburetor a couple inches off the intake manifold. Okay. And they run a little better that way. Yeah. Okay. Gives it a little bit of a tunnel ram thing. Yeah. Yeah, it keeps that vacuum straight in the carburetor. Right. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, now this is related by the Flathead, but it's a different angle of a question. This is from Keith. He says he was going to ask Ed how you wire the resistor from the power wire. I think he's looking at your test bench where you have that Well, that's the ignition.
Yeah.
It's ignition. Ignition part goes to the resistor, and the resistor goes to the coil.
Okay.
Yeah.
But why does it need a resistor is what he's asking.
Some coils do and some coils don't. And then if it has a resistor, the car will run fine on 8 volts, and then you won't burn the points up so much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the points will last a little longer, and it will run just fine on that 8 volts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Usually sometimes, like Chevrolet for over the years has bypassed that with the purple wire and a resistor. And that's why General Motors started, we're going back to General Motors starter then, it has 2 little terminals on it. Mm-hmm. And when the starter's engaged, there's a wire that goes right straight to the coil, 12 volts. So it starts on 12 volts, and you let go of the key, it runs on 8.
Okay, interesting. So just giving that little extra spark when it's trying to start.
That's Chevrolet, it's always been.
Oh, okay.
That's the 2 little wires on the starter.
Okay, and that's what they're for.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so now we're moving on. We have a question here or a comment related to the Olds 455 we talked about a few weeks ago.
Okay.
People are interested in that. So he's an Oldsmobile man. This guy, this person's name is Jason Humphrey. He says, as an Oldsmobile man, I've always heard about the 455 Olds oil problems, but what about the early 400 and 425 blocks? I never heard of problems from them, and as well as the small blocks. And he also heard, maybe this is another part of the question, that the 455 is really a stroked out 425. I don't know. Do you know anything about it?
I don't know that much about it. That is, though. They're all the same motor.
Okay.
The same block, they have the same oiling and everything.
Okay.
And probably the only reason you'd have more oiling problems with the 455, the pistons are heavier.
Okay.
And the rods are a little heavier and things like this. And I think there maybe you're demanding a little bit more out of the 455.
Yeah.
Whatever car it's in, you demand a little bit more horsepower.
Right.
And then you do the 350 or the 400s.
Okay.
The 400s will become a family car.
Yeah.
Family motor, and you didn't abuse it as much as you did the 455, but it's the same block.
Okay, it is.
Same oiling system and everything, yeah.
He said he's also heard say that at 5250 RPM, the Oldsmobile oil pan gets sucked dry on a long run at high speed. Oh, 5200 RPM.
On a boat?
Well, I don't know. He doesn't say. Just the Oldsmobile.
At 5200 RPMs down the street all the time. But I don't know. It must be in a boat.
A boat would do that,
and
right?
Actually, the boat needs a bigger oil pan.
Okay, it does.
Absolutely.
Okay. You're on board with that. Get it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, thank you, Jason. Now I have a couple transmission questions.
Okay. We'll try that.
Well, try that. Someone's saying, should I continue to use high mileage? Because we saw how those seals on the TH350 that had those soggy worms, we called them.
They put some kind of stop leak in it.
Something was in there,
yeah. It really screwed it up, yeah.
Yeah. What about the high mileage full synthetic automatic transmission fluid? Because I think the high mileage stuff has a little bit of seal, an additive or something for the seals.
It probably doesn't.
Okay.
It probably does. It probably has some more stuff or more lubricating stuff.
Okay.
Lubricating additives in the oil.
Okay.
For high mileage.
Right.
I don't think it has anything to do with keeping the oil clean. I never heard of a high mileage transmission oil.
Yeah, you see it on engine oils.
Well, that's fine, but this is the oil company doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would think if the oil company wanted to sell more oil, they'd say low mileage. You know, they'd sell a lot more transmission oil and telling you that this oil will last 100,000 miles.
Right.
So that's wrong right there.
Okay. So you like just the straight normal stuff.
Straight normal stuff. And we always like the Ford oil. We get into that. Ford oil is a drier oil because Ford's transmissions didn't shift so well.
Okay.
So then they made oil with drier and stickier. So it shifts firm. And then the General Motors, they always had their transmissions shift so good, and they hit so hard to shift. The old lady didn't like it. So they put some slippery oil in there in the transmissions.
Okay.
So I think in the whole oil things, and my oil people, we attend a few oil seminars once in a while.
Yeah.
That we always use Ford oil.
Okay.
In all of our race cars and stuff. And I think as far as B&M used to have some slick oil, they sold it. in the blue cans, and it says that this is the stickier oil. It was Ford oil with a little blue coloring.
Okay.
So that's all, as far as I know.
Okay.
Yeah, we always use Ford oil and everything. It shifts harder.
So the Motorcraft.
Yes.
Okay.
And if shifts harder, the transmission will last a lot longer.
Okay.
Instead of sliding in all the time, sliding in.
Whoa. See, now that's an interesting thing. Intuitively, it's the opposite, right? If you're shifting hard, that's hard on something.
No, it shifts harder. It's firmer. Instead of slipping and taking a few seconds to get into that gear.
Okay.
That's when it makes the transmission hotter. The oil gets hotter when it slips in there, and if it shifts good and hard, the oil shifts instantly. It's in gear, not slipping in and like a nice, soft, smooth shift.
Okay.
So we've always used Ford oil.
Very good.
Always. And change it once in a while. Don't be ashamed. It still costs that much.
Yeah.
And I think now the transmission oil, we have a transmission guy down the street that we help him a little bit, and he helps us.
Yep.
A younger guy, and I'm just shocked what transmissions cost to rebuild them now.
Oh, it's amazing.
But they're expensive, they're all things, and I always said about the front-wheel drive transmissions, you get one of those rebuilt, and the guy costs you $3,000.
Yeah, right.
But you pay twice, because if the guy that built the transmissions messed up, now you got to take half the car apart to get it back out and fix it.
Yeah.
So every time you pay for the transmission, you pay for the second overhaul right away up front.
Right.
Like a little insurance policy for the transmission shop, not you.
Right. Yeah, that's a tricky business.
And it don't cost any more to rebuild one of those things. A front-wheel drive car is always, I say, $75 to buy all the parts and fix it.
Yeah.
But not for the new ones.
Right.
So now the new transmissions are $3,000 or $4,000 or more.
Yeah, they have a lot of electronics in them now.
Yeah, a lot of, well, not necessarily, a little bit of electronics, and they're crazy.
Yeah. Right.
Some of these, they have some magnets in them that makes the valves move electronically.
Okay.
If the magnet goes bad, the valve don't move. Now you got to buy the whole thing.
Wow.
I know Ford had one a while back that the shifter training guy down the street here had one, but somehow the shift lever was hooked to a magnet, and it went over this computer. As you pulled the lever down, it went past this computer and magnetized that computer thing in the transmission.
Okay.
Kind of a module.
Yeah.
And that made it shift. Well, he tried to get one from Ford, and they were backordered because they were all going bad.
Oh, no.
And
Wow.
Ford didn't want to sell him one.
Right.
But he finally talked him into selling him one and got his customers fixed up. That was almost a brand new truck.
Wow.
Some kind of a Ford van.
Yeah.
Sick.
Huh. What about the Chrysler 904 transmission? Do you know anything about those?
Oh, 904 is the same as 727.
It is?
Just smaller.
Okay. Yeah, he says he has it in his Dart Sport. So
they can make those shift really good.
Is
it's
that
the
right?
same valve body. I think the valve body is interchangeable.
Okay, really?
I have a 904 and a 727. We used to work on those all the time, but the 904 is just a smaller clutch pack.
Okay.
And you can make those do the same thing.
Right.
And they have some 904s and some pretty small block Mopars racing.
Yeah.
Because I think that, I'm trying to think what transmission, one of them takes more horsepower to pull it in first gear. The 904 and the 727 don't take as much horsepower to rotate the transmission.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me. There was another version. Was there a version of a Chrysler transmission where you had a clutch just to get it started and then it was automatic after that?
Oh, that was the old, I don't know what in the old 50s.
Okay, yeah.
50s, and basically the shifter didn't have a low gear area in the shift handle.
Really?
You just had second, high, and reverse.
Okay.
But it had a torque converter, a real torque converter, and believe it or not, that torque converter ran off engine oil.
Oh, did it?
Yes.
Okay.
Engine oil filled that torque converter, but it had a clutch with a dry clutch disc and pressure plate welded on the back of the torque converter.
Okay.
So you could stop it in second gear at a stop sign and just mash the gas, and it took off like an automatic.
So just let the torque converter let it...
50s.
Okay.
Yeah, 50s and 51s and Dodges, yeah.
Okay.
But you had to push the clutch down to actually put it in gear.
Oh, really? Okay.
You couldn't just put it in gear because it was a stick shift transmission with this clutch and a torque converter hooked on the back of the flywheel, on the back of the engine.
I need to see one of those sometime.
Yeah, you won't see one. It's, you're not that. You'll never live that long enough to see one. They're all junked in the junkyard.
They're all gone.
They're all scrap.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I
So
guess
that's what they had. It was
okay. Yeah. I guess that was
it
75
seemed to work.
years
I don't
ago.
know. I never. That's when I grew up. They was around.
Yeah.
I think I went to first job I had was 1959. And we worked some of those older cars.
Yeah, so a used Carb would have had that possibly.
Yeah, oh yeah. 49s and 50s, yeah, we had some in the shop.
Yeah.
Customers had them, yeah.
Very good. Well, excellent. I think that's a great place to stop.
Okay.
We're going to call that a good episode here of asking questions. Thank you, Ed.
Yeah. Okay, very good.
That is really good. And thank you for sending in the questions. We're going to carry on, continue these. There seems like quite a few people are interested in getting the wisdom of Ed Smith and his career in machining, engine building, racing, all the things. He's had quite a career, and he also has an amazing memory and remembers all these random questions.
I just can't remember what day it is.
So thank you for supporting us, for all your likes and subscribe. If you stayed to the end here, you're one of the best. You're the best viewers to stay all the way through, and thank you for that. And we'll see you again soon.